Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Jeffrey, naturopathic doctor in Campbell River, coming to you from my location, Perceptive Health. And today I wanted to talk about really the gut-brain connection. So that was our theme for the week. So we've been doing lots of classes here at the office and been talking about specific topics. Now, these classes are a little bit different than the normal kind of seminar classes that you would go to. They are a smaller group, a little bit more time for individualized kind of discussion and really really driven on the details of a specific topic. So last week we talked about the gut-brain connection and the mind. So I put in the mind because the mind and the brain, the mind and the body, are kind of intricately linked, and both the mind and the body have to be kind of balanced, and there's different ways to do that. So that's what I thought I would do today, would come on here and just kind of review some of these things that we support our brain and support our mind through our gut. Now, it's really interesting. There's two directions. So the mind also affects the gut as well. So we found there's researchers out there that are looking at this, and they found that under things like chronic stress, thinking patterns, negative thinking patterns, all these things that are manifesting in the brain, do feed back down to the digestive system and overall influence the gut diversity, especially in the microbiome. So they could do things like slow down digestion. Stress and worry and those kind of things can also slow down digestion. They can also influence the gut microbiome. So that's really fascinating. And what happens with this gut microbiome, or what is that gut microbiome? And the gut microbiome is our bacteria in our body that helps support health. So they do something that is an advantage for us. They help maintain your immune system, for example. They help contribute to nutritional deficiencies. So there's a lot of different ways that our gut microbiome influences our body overall. And we're just learning. We're just kind of scratching the surface as to how this is happening. It's absolutely fascinating stuff kind of out there that we are talking about, and we are learning every single day. But one of the areas that's fascinating is how this gut microbiome influences our brain. And right now, there's a lot of research coming out in the animal studies, and then there is clinical research coming out in controlled kind of experimentation in human population groups. And they're mostly using things like probiotic drinks, and then using like MRI, functional MRI imaging to view areas in the brain associated with moods. They're also using things that will help, things that will show before and after questionnaires, those kind of things. And there's a lot of really interesting things coming out there. And one interesting article that I was reading a little while back was that the group of participants in this one study had a drink of the probiotic solution, and then they were to do imaging, and they did before imaging, and they were showing they had a lot of, say, activity in certain centers of the brain associated with emotion and anxiety and stress. And then after a while of treatment on a probiotic drink, they did the research again and did the imaging again on the brain, and found that the area was less intense, and that this group significantly had lower feelings of stress and anxiety. So there is fascinating stuff going out there like this all the time. There's also a lot of people trying to figure out how does this gut bacteria influence our mind, and how does our mind influence our gut bacteria, because they seem to be connected. And what connects the mind, or the brain, and the gut is something called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve mostly feeds down to the digestion, speeding digestion up, slowing it down, and it also it goes to the heart as well, and that comes to be very important. But also, it's not just a one-way direction. It's also providing some feedback, and that's where we're really starting to figure out what is going on here. But there is information coming, sensory information coming from the gut to the brain as well from the heart to the brain. And that's most likely where the gut microbiome is interacting. So it may be producing metabolites that then may stimulate the vagus nerve in certain ways, so either in positive or negative ways, depending on the bacteria. So good bacteria would stimulate it in a positive way, maybe reducing the stress centers in the brain. And other bacteria that may be bad bacteria may be producing things like propionic acid or substances that are just may have more of a mood lowering effect. So it's really fascinating where we're headed, but moral of the story is really focusing on that digestion to build, to support your brain, and really dealing with things like subclinical dysbiosis or infection or subclinical infections that may not be, say, the classic like gastroenteritis, viral infections of the gut. They may be low-grade infections like bacterial overgrowths. They may be maybe imbalances in the gut microbiome that we can weed out and we can work on and build health over time and increase the diversity. That's another way we can work on our microbiome, and overall build our brain and build our memory and support our system in those ways. So that was really what we talked about in that discussion. We are going to be having another talk this week. Now these are small group talks, so this one is filled for next week. But we're likely going to be having a little more chat. We're going to be doing these often, so they're going to be a regular part of the clinic, where you can come in and get a little bit of education on a particular topic that you're interested. Digestive health, stress support, anxiety support, autoimmune conditions and immune support. We're going to be doing lots of different ones. We're going to have some guest speakers out. We're going to be having one coming up, some information on mindfulness. And that's also what I was actually really wanting to have a little chat about as well, is mindfulness. Now, that's the mind-gut connection, right? So there is that connection between the mind and the gut. When we're under a lot of stress, we produce inflammation. When we don't sleep, we actually produce inflammation that we can track on blood. And that inflammation or something changes and actually has been shown to decrease the gut diversity in the gut, slow down or speed up digestion, just influence digestion and aggravate things like irritable bowel syndrome. So how do we work on that? Well, a big limiting factor sometimes is that we have to work on the mind. And there's a lot of really interesting things coming out with what we call mindfulness. And the term mindfulness is becoming very, very, very trendy and very known by a lot of people. But sometimes the true essence of mindfulness is actually lost, and really people oversimplify it. One thing that we find is really truly mindfulness is about really experiencing the moment and conserving your energy on things that you have in the moment, and being less focused about the future or the past, and really focusing attention internally and to our surroundings. Now, that can really do wonders for reducing stress. But what also is really important is it actually is training the brain. And it's training this area called the frontal cortex. That's this area up here. It's training it to downregulate and disconnect from the emotional center. And it's also training our nervous system to kind of come back to center and kind of keep coming back to a place of calmness. And it's not so much about stopping negative thoughts or stopping negative emotions or distracting yourself from reality. It's really the true essence is about bringing your attention back to center. And that's the skill. That's really the skill, is trying to bring your attention back to calming, centering portion. And the more practice you can do, the better able you are to bring your mind back to center at a place where you can really truly heal and really feel well and balanced. So that takes time and it takes some work. And I was doing a little research and showing, and it's really interesting. They've also done these fascinating studies where they've looked at the anxiety centers and the emotional centers of the brain. And they've also found that the amygdala tends to decrease after about a period of 8 weeks of practice. And this means could be just a regular practice of mindfulness. And that seems to be one of the hardest points, is getting to this 8-week point and creating a routine for it as well. So what we do is really try to get people to do that and really motivate people to continue on with mindfulness outside the office, because without that, you're not going to be able to really get to that next level of wellness sometimes. And sometimes the digestive system, supporting that digestive system, it really needs that to happen. So we've got lots of ways to do this, but one of the ways we've been doing it is really just meeting up as part of a mindful group and really being there to challenge each other every single, like once a week, and just meeting up, showing up, and going through the routine. And then obviously everybody kind of goes home and does some activities at home. And it doesn't have to be much. When you're starting, it could just be, getting out there and walking and just paying attention to what you're doing in the moment. And over time, that gets easier and easier. But it seems like the key figure to actually cause brain changes and reduce the connections of the upper area, which can be a generator of anxiety and stress, and the inner areas of the brain, which are associated with stress and anxiety, like the amygdala, seems to be about 8 weeks. So that's the tricky part, is really sticking to your routine for 8 weeks. And sometimes it's nice to just put a goal that you're going to do it once a week, just practice this once a week, and then 8 weeks, and then check in on yourself in 8 weeks. And see what changes, see if your digestive system has changed, see if other things have changed. There's also some other fascinating ways we can measure your nervous system. So we can also measure your nervous system as you are going through practicing this at home and setting goals based on how your nervous system is responding. And we do that through something called heart rate variability. And what we could do is we can grow the heart brain connection, right? Remember I said at the beginning that the vagus nerve, that connects our gut to our brain, but it also connects our heart to our brain, and it is a two-way direction. Not only is the brain, speeding up the heart rate, slowing down the heart rate, but the brain, the heart is also connected to the brain and sending information to the brain, and that's fascinating. So we could pay attention using a heart rate monitor and measuring variability. That is the variation between one beat to the next beat. It's not heart rate, it's the variability in between. And the more variability, the better balanced our nervous system is, the better able it is our heart can connect with our brain, and our brain can connect with our heart. So mindfulness is like an activity that connects the heart to the brain, and over time builds that and really helps shift the brain from more of a stress and inflammation and fight or flight function down to a rest, digest, and anti-inflammatory kind of state in the body. And that is a huge, major shift in healing when you can achieve that. So I look forward to chatting with you guys again. And again, we have our talks, so I look forward to seeing you. And obviously, we are here at the office, so we will talk to you all soon at a future talk. Take care, everybody, and have a fantastic weekend.